In the previous video, we saw how we can create customized textures and how we can choose the textures from the web, and also how we can generate textures inside Maya, and also how we can create customized textures in GIMP or Photoshop or similar graphic design application. We also talk about the importance of mapping. So when we place a material on a particular object, we have to place it in a correct way. And we also talked about unwrap mapping, which is extremely precise when we need to place a material on an object. We made an example with a simple cube. So we created a UV map or a texture. We exported that into GIMP, and then we place some really simple graphics there just to make an example. But of course, you can use that for packaging. You can use that for industrial design, placing infographics on your objects to do like prototyping and so on. So it's a pretty useful part of the Maya software. And in this video, we're continuing to talk about materials and let's say customizable textures by using the painting tool. So this is another option that we have here in Maya, to use the painting feature or 3D paint tool right there. So with that, we can directly paint on objects to customize them more. For example, you can paint out dirt, you can paint out streaks or where the material is a little bit worn and consumed. So you can create more realistic effects using painting. And in my opinion, I think there are better application for 3D painting, like for example, Armor Paint, which is completely open source, and also Substance from Adobe. But you can still do a pretty good job here in Maya as well. You need to have more patience because in Maya, we usually work in a scene, so it's a little bit more complex than working with a single object. While in other software, we usually use a single object and we work with that. So we can see that the tool settings here are similar to the sculpting tools, and you will usually find also, well, first of all, you need to assign a texture, assign fill texture to an object. Otherwise, you cannot work with the painting. So select the object, assign fill texture, give a resolution to the textures. So the higher is the resolution in pixels, the better and more detailed will be your textures. And this is also for what we talked about in the previous video. So also when you search textures, be careful on the sizing, not too big, not too small. It has to be optimized for what you have to do. So if it's an unwrap texture like this one, a single texture, you can bump up this to 4096. But if it is a tileable or tiling texture, you can drop down that perhaps to 1024 or 5012. 512. So these are, you can see, multiples of 2. And this is how the binary system works. So it's always a multiple of 2, and that's going to be better for your texture. So I think the best here is 4096, which is pretty high. It's 4K. And if you go higher than that, you're going to experience some issues concerning the RAM and also the heaviness of the viewport. So I don't usually go that high. I'm usually to 1K or 2K. But again, it's not exactly 1000 or 2000. It's always a multiple of 2. So it's 1024 or 2048. Okay, let's choose also a format here. So it's going to be a JPEG, which is pretty compact and not heavy. And then I can assign the texture there. So it's like I am creating a texture inside the material that I can work with. So now you can see the brush on the text, and now you will be able to paint. If you don't do that operation first, you will not be able to paint on your objects. So that's pretty important step right there. And also be careful to have a nice UV mapping. Let's open up the UV editor as we did also in the previous video. And you can see here that the situation is pretty messed up, so it will be awkward to paint on that UV map. So let's say with so many issues. So I'm gonna show you just to make you understand what I'm talking about. So right now I am in the color field. So I click there to get inside. So you won't see so right now you won't see the image there yet. We need to save that, but well, we're gonna do that later. Just gonna show you here first. Go into the tool settings, shading, and let's open up the brush again. There you go. Okay, and let's also be sure that we have the texture on, otherwise we cannot see what we are painting. And then everything is set up. So okay, I'm just gonna paint out here somewhere in this text, in this 3D text, and we will see how the mapping will work. So first of all, we're gonna set up a radius. Be careful that it's not too big or not too small. Of course, it needs to be balanced according to the size of your object and your scene. So first thing, radius, and you can see the radius there with that red circle right there. So you actually have two radius. One is for the softness of the edges, and one is for the part where it's going to be more intense. You see there, I kind of sprayed a little bit with this first brush. You can see that white over there. So first of all, it's working. So this is, of course, a good news. And then second of all, we can already test the difference in changing the parameters here for the radius, the first radius and the second one. So below that, we have some different brushes. You can see that some of those are less blurred and more defined. Okay, and then we have the color. So I'm going to increase the color. We also have opacity, and opacity is basically the opposite of transparency. So when something is opaque, it's going to be not transparent, and vice versa. Okay, so I'm trying to set up here a small size because I want to do some like dirt on this text. And usually when you add some defects on the objects like dirt and things like that, they're gonna look a little bit more realistic. So, well, this is pretty big to be dirt, but just to give you an idea. And again, you can check the video course in Armor Paint. It's pretty detailed. So you can ask for more information about that, or you can just type in the comments questions and ask for assistance. So I'm gonna use okay, just gonna show you real quick the name here, Armor Paint, so that you can find it. You can find the website. This is open source software. You can install it, or you can also buy it and support the team for really a low cost. And so just to show you, Armor Paint, it's basically the free alternative to Substance Painter, which is also not expensive, and basically does the same job, which is painting on materials and create textures with layers